And we are live. Good afternoon.
How's it going?
Good. I have a question for you.
Yes.
And this is a question that's been floating around. When do you stop saying Happy New Year?
Sheesh. I'm not a big Happy New Year guy, so I stopped when I would say third week in January is when.
Third week. So we're still going this week.
Still going. Well, if you haven't met anybody since the New Year, then you say Happy New Year.
So technically, and I think this is real, this is the first time you and I have spoken to each other this year.
Yes.
And so I debate and lament on the fact of should I say Happy New Year to you or not. I'm more of Happy New Year is the first of everything, right? The first Sunday, the first Monday, and then I stop. So usually by January 8th, I'll just say, "Oh, how was your New Year's? Did you do anything nice?" But I won't go with the Happy New Year.
You're I'm big on just because it's probably because I'm Southern. Pleasantries all around. If it doesn't hurt me, I say it. It's a Southern thing.
You know, up north, those pleasantries are. We probably could take a lesson in a class. So how are you?
Pretty good. It's freezing down here in Atlanta. So I think we got it down into the 20s. So I was about to call off work, even though I work from home. That's how cold it was.
Is it really 20?
Yes, it's well, it got up down to 28. Right now it's probably about 45.
So you're playing in my world.
Yeah. I don't see how you survive. You are a true gladiator just for living up there.
We feel like gladiators. I think I've told you the only one of the manly things I do is shoveling snow. And that makes me feel like to bear the mother nature and just where it is. 35 today, 35 and sunny today.
Yeah, you should move. Come on, we have houses, we have land, we have good food. Chicago has really good food, but I mean,
real good food.
But if you won't miss it that much, okay, coming down.
They kickoff, obviously the buzz right now is the Chicago Bears, right? That's the big buzz in the city. Everybody, even your novice fan, is wearing a Bears hat, a sweatshirt. Everyone has some Bear paraphernalia on. And so the kickoff this Sunday when the Rams come to town should be right around 20 degrees. So we're gonna let that warm weather city team come on in here and get some of this cold, and we're going to try to use it to our advantage.
I wonder like what special equipment these football players have to have. Like they have to have like the top-notch hand warmers, because I would just that couldn't be my profession. Let's leave it at
that. David Goggins would be the first one that comes to reference of someone that just has the mental capabilities of like absorbing the climate and absorbing with whatever you have to deal with. It really is it's and that's the funny thing. We say Bears and bear weather, but at the end of the day, those players aren't not necessarily from Chicago.
Nope.
They cold just like everybody else, but I guess I don't know if you get used to it or maybe it's just not as bad with all that equipment on. So maybe you get that lather going and you just I don't know, you just got to block it out.
I think they have like the right equipment, right gloves. Like they have the stuff that people who live in Antarctica have. Okay? And nice neck. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's nothing nice. I had a couple buddies, say, hey, from out of town, they were like, hey man, you going to the game? on this past Saturday, and I was like, "Nah, man, it's 30. It was 33 degrees." And it's one thing. It's a weird stadium the way it's set up. So you basically have to park wherever you decide to park, and you have to walk 1 mile,
Mhm.
1.2, 1.4 miles. So you have to walk to get there.
Yeah.
No matter, obviously you can't come from the east because that's the lake. And then it's plotted there. So you're either gonna come from the north, the south, or the west.
Yeah.
And then you gotta walk. And so I remember me and my son went, and just this year, and it was like 32 degrees. And we went, and you do get lathered up making the walk.
Mhm.
You're all bundled up, multiple layers on. But then it's that sitting for 3 hours. No matter if you're jumping up and down, screaming, it's that sitting, and that wind gets you. And then you start tearing in your eyes, and it's like, "Ooh, buddy." It
I mean, the surprising thing is y'all actually paid to do that. That's what
Man,
blows my mind. I'm like, I'm not paying to be tortured. I don't know.
that's what we do, man. We pay. We're big fans. It's the one thing that we all come together with. Not everyone is basketball here. There's a lot of aficionados for basketball, but we're separated when it comes to baseball. But the whole city comes together for the Chicago Bears. So we'll see if they can keep it going. One more time. Well, they need two more for the bowl. So can they? But they got to get this one first. So exciting times, to say the least, around here. But today, I thought it was cool that we would start off this year with a conversation about pre-approval versus true affordability.
Mhm.
I would imagine that you and I are both probably, if I know you well, on the same page on this. But it's a real problem. It's a real situation that people deal with on as these prices continue to go up, and potentially will go up because of interest rates going down. What will you do? Will you jump on that boat, even though, is it affordable to you? Yes, you're pre-approved, but is it affordable? So I have a stance, but I wanted to hear your stance, and we could take it from there. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't talk about is folks suffer in silence when they are, let's call it, house poor, meaning our house rich, and cash poor. And that is just like the silent killer. The amount of compromises people have to live in a house that they truly can't afford is immense. And people say it all the time. They say, "Hey, buy as much of the house as you can afford, and over time, you'd appreciate that you purchased that house." But I don't think back then they had the same financial constraints, or their home took up so much of a percentage of their income as is today. And also, I like to say today we have a lot of luxuries of life that folks didn't have in the past. Like we all have to have a cell phone bill.
Sure.
Most of us will have some type of streaming services. We have luxuries of life that if we forewent, we would probably not enjoy life as much. So the typical ratios of going up to 50% of your income paying for a home, I don't think still applies today. And that's my take on
No, I like that. I mean, obviously, the whole concept that we're talking about today is that when you're pre-approved for a mortgage, there is a idea of looking at your income, whether it's tax returns, W-2s, or pay stubs, and determining exactly what is the maximum that you can get pre-approved for. Now, generally, the one tweak that I like to do as a loan officer is I always like to ask, what is the payment that you'll feel most comfortable with? I always try to have this conversation besides just, yes, of course, I can look at numbers and I can say, hey, this is what you qualify for. This is the maximum you can get. But I want to know where you're trying to buy. I want to know what style of home you're trying to get. So I have a better idea to hit the number that's going to make you feel comfortable. Now, obviously, mind you, as we have this conversation with people, generally people will always say, a lower number than expected, right? They'll say $1,500. They'll
it.
say $2,000. And then when we get to the closing table, it's 2344. It's 2750, because they may not like per se what they see at those smaller payment sizes based on today's market. So my question to you is, when a consumer has that type of thing going on, right? They have a feel of their budget, let's say, and they know that they feel comfortable with that $2,000 mark. but then they end up still because of the pre-approval, they go to the $2,500. What are things that other than no, don't do that? What should we be doing?
So, we got to really talk about the journey of how somebody buys a home. So, when somebody buys a home, they have to hire a realtor. They have to go to the process of getting pre-approval. They have to shop around. They have to fall in love with the house. And then they're sitting at the closing table, or they receive a quote from somebody like you, and they're like, "Hey, this is going to be your quote." And in their mind, they're like, "I want to stay in this budget range, but because the quote you sent me, it's about $400 more. But I've sacrificed so much to get to this point. I just want to get it over the table." And especially if they're partner up, one partner may be really pushing it, and it is tough to shop for a home if you're married. Trust me, I definitely know. So those factors are at play when somebody receives that price quote. And unfortunately, once people get to that point, they usually just make the leap, hold their nose, and make that jump. And sometimes it's not in their best interest in the long term.
Sure, no doubt. It's tough because it's not really my stance to play God, right? I'm not here to be judgmental. Maybe you are going to get that raise down the road. Maybe you are going to get that promotion. Maybe you are going to get that new job. There's things that are going to happen in your life that might change the dynamics. Now you're going to get married. So I can't play God. I can't say no, that's not for you. I can simply say, do you qualify for a yes, and give you the opportunity. And that's the hard thing about being a loan officer. Sometimes I have to give you the opportunity, and I want you to succeed. I want everyone that works with me to succeed. I want them to get the house of their dreams and make it happen for them, and turn something into nothing. Make it a legacy, pass it on to kids, whatever that your heart desires. But the harsh reality is sometimes you are going past a number that really truly you're really stretching yourself. And if one iota, one bad thing, you get sick, you get injured on the job, now you're stretched and you can't afford the mortgage, and then you get into trouble. Those are tough things. Those are
Yeah,
tough things to really handle.
and I see it all the time, and I know like this isn't like this touches your area of work, but it isn't like your responsibility. I know you guys see this all the time. Somebody gets into a mortgage, usually higher than what they wanted, because that's how life works. But then all of a sudden, the next year, property taxes go up.
Correct.
Nobody anticipated. They probably bought a new construction, and now their property tax has gone up significantly, and that just can knock somebody over. Let's talk about a different change in homeowners insurance. And then some communities have HOA fees that can go up significantly, especially if it's a new construction. So there are things that I feel like we have to communicate to folks if we're being responsible. It's like, hey, yeah, this is your payment, but acknowledge that this is more than likely going to go up. And I think if we give them the truth, then we can let them make adult decisions. Like I said, we can't play God. We can only provide our experiences and what we've seen, and hopefully help them make the best decision for them.
No, I agree with you. And what's good about what we're saying is this is where the financial advisor, loan officer, we start, the hat is split down the middle, because from an advisor perspective, that objective nature of what you're talking about is what I pay you for. I want you to give me objective. I want you to tell me what's going on. But from a loan officer perspective, I just want you to do this work so I can get this house. So if the mindset and the mentality sometimes is you're just a waiter. Here's my order. Yeah, go get this done. I'm a necessary evil. And sometimes when I try to turn on the hat a little bit, like, okay, I'm more than just some waiter for you. I'm also going to advise you on the right product, loan product to choose from, and just a strategy that could work for you, how to pay this down quicker, since you're taking out, probably the biggest amount of money that you've ever borrowed. It is a tough situation. It really puts us in, just a cumbersome situation because you can see it if you have that ideology, if you have that mindset, but then it's like, we're torn. I have to do what you want me to do. I'm working for you, but am I doing what's best for you? And that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think and people have to realize different things. So I work as a fiduciary for the client. I have to always act in their best interest. Well, different models, a mortgage broker, a real estate agent, you guys are there to facilitate transactions. Now, Some people facilitate transactions better than others, absolutely. But your job is to get them over the finish line as the client wishes. And I think that's the difference between advice and sometimes, I guess, facilitation. So you guys are there facilitate transaction. We actually provide some type of fiduciary guidance and advice.
No, I love that. And I want to point that out for people. And, because if some people might be on listening to us and say, hey, I was screwed over by my realtor, or I was, taken advantage of by my loan officer. And to some degree, did they perform their transaction? The answer might be yes, they did. You might not be happy with the outcome, but they did what they were supposed to do versus, if there was a CPA doing this, you would have a fiduciary responsibility saying, hey, this house might be too much for you. We got to tame it down. I like what you said about what gets ignored. And I want to talk about what gets ignored in sometimes what I would like to say is pre-approval is math, right? That's just basic math that we talked about. But affordability is more about life.
Yeah.
Life things that do occur, your lifestyle per se. So things that may get ignored, I would say is daycare. That would definitely be one. Travel, how much you're wanting to travel, from a vacation standpoint, from a job standpoint. Aging parents, especially in this day and age of, oh, I'm going to have to deal with my mom. Actually, I had a conversation with somebody, God, it was recently, where they said they sold their house and they had to move closer. It was I was in Florida. I was in Florida on the holidays. And it was my one of my best buddies growing up, his wife, a retired veteran. They moved from South Carolina to Georgia
Okay.
because he wanted to be closer to his mom to take care of his aging mom. That's a major change in their life, that it was like it was not good enough to live in South Carolina anymore. I had to move and relocate to Georgia because that's where my mom is, and she's, up in age, she's in her 90s, and I want to make sure I'm close to her and be there to help her.
Mhm.
So those are things that people need to factor in when they're thinking about affordability. Career risk, it was, I was talking to a guy, I was talking to a financial advisor, another financial advisor, and what I said to him was, these W-2 jobs are supposed to be the safe, secure jobs, but it seems like you go up the ladder and then they decide to let everybody go. You go up, you start off at 60, you work your way, and now you're at the 120, and then you get to 150, and then guess what? You cost too much, and we're consolidating. And we start back over and we go get the college kid who I can give him 60K and he's happy. And I feel like that rat race, you're starting to see that more and more in all these, supposed safe jobs. And people are really struggling with that because now you're on the severance package game and having to refine a new company and restart over again. And that can really affect your dollar and cents. Also, future goals, just your ambitions on what you want your life to be. You only get one, till I know. So with this one, what are you actually going to do with it? What life goals do you have? I think those concepts get ignored by deciding on what type of home, and that can really, that can affect you, right? That can affect your bottom line.
I
What
think
do you
all
think?
those are 100% correct. I'd add on to that social.
Mm,
Sometimes when you move to a house because of affordability issues or situations, you have to move further away from a social environment. And you may think, well, that's fine. I can stay at home, save money, I'll eat now. But that social environment sometimes is where your economic opportunity comes from. So all those things you listed are things that you are foregoing. So a lot of times to go into these certain living situations, and they just have to be a factor. It doesn't mean don't do it. It just means add up the complete cost, and it is more, as we articulated, than the quote that a mortgage person gives you as far as your payment. There's a bigger cost. There's a bigger lifestyle choices. There are more factors in general you have to take into account, and nobody's going to tell you that, especially those who are help facilitating transactions.
yeah, the majority will not, and you do have to be mindful of it. I was thinking, I was doing some math, doing my epic monologue on Friday. That's going to be talking about this. I thought this was a great topic, and I was just looking at like 380,000 compared to 450,000. $70,000 difference. But, depending on the interest rates, that's about a $500 difference. So a $500 difference for $70,000. And you're like, for some, it's not a big ordeal. Sure, no biggie. But for others, that's a major deal because I said, take that $500, times it by 12, that's $6,000. Times it by 5 years, that's 30 grand. Now, once again, for some, 30 grand is not a big ordeal, but for others, man, that's an emergency savings. That's a huge number. And that's all it takes is making that choice of, hey, yes, you can get pre-approved for it, but is it affordable to you? Can you still pay that additional $500 and still save $30,000? And if the answer is no, then we need to rethink the plan. We need to rethink the strategy. What do you think
And
about
that
that?
$500 could represent money you have to go back home and visit your family.
Mm,
Money that you have to give to charities and things that you care about. Like this money, it definitely looks beautiful in a bank account. As a financial planner, I wanted your account invested, growing in savings. But that money represents a lot, and for somebody to be throwing that in the home, could sometimes be not in that individual's best interest. And we're saying this. I think me and you are both big on home ownership and people owning a home when it makes sense. So we're not anti-home. All we are is being thoughtful about the home. And people look at us sometimes as like, okay, you're popping the bubble of our dream. No, we're giving you the reality to prevent you from hopping into a nightmare.
agreed. I mean, there's a bunch of areas in the Chicagoland area I could probably live in, but I
Mhm.
opt not to
Yeah.
because, I am conscious of what my payment is.
Mhm.
And and so yeah, maybe I could rub some elbows with some different types of folks, but it's just a decision that is made for the betterment of my family. And and I think for some, some of my buddies like, hey, why don't you come over here? They get it.
Mhm.
But it's just, for me, it's just me being cheap. Let's not get it let's not get it twisted. But it's just like, man, I've just been in that situation where it's like, I I keep it basic. What do you think about minimalists? I mean, is that where we're at? Is that a form? You think minimalism? What do you think?
I'm a big fan of minimalism. If I've noticed people who watch this show and me on the show, I usually only wear blue. So there's something called a chrome coloring on your wardrobe where you only wear one color, and that is your theme. So you have to limit your decisions.
Mm,
So one part of minimalism is just limiting your decisions, and also it's focusing on what is actually important to you. So maybe having a home where you have to cut the grass, having a home where you have to check things. I think, like we started earlier, temperatures dropping in the 20s. So some things we're supposed to do was cover our outside faucets. Little stuff like that that I know in your area, y'all do it
common.
automatically, but it is a big deal down here. It's like
Sure.
everybody notification. um, Little things about home ownership, that is mental space that is in my head. Okay.
Hmm.
Let's talk about square footage. Somebody has to clean this house I live in. Somebody
Facts.
has to mop those floors, vacuum those things, dust everything off. When you own stuff, it does own a piece of you because it's somewhere in the back of your mind. Oh, I have to do this. I do this. I have to put up some shelves in my garage. Things that takes rent in your head that could be used to potentially earn more money, or thinking about people that you truly care about, or have spent time with people you truly care about. So there's a trade-off with everything. So I'm a big fan of really always focusing on how do you downsize things. I have a policy in my house where anytime I buy something, I have to throw something away. And
Mm.
that way is an automatic check to make sure that I'm just not accumulating junk because it can really happen.
Oh, no doubt. My wife, I said, these closets don't expand. They, so I was like, hey, when I call it one in, one out. I say, if you get one thing, get one thing has to go out. So I'm right there with you. So I'm soon recognizing that you and I are very similar in nature, but it's so important because I think as you get older, you recognize none of that stuff matters. I definitely was probably more materialistic growing up.
Yeah.
I had to have my no limit records. I always wanted to have, nice designer clothes and stuff. But, none of that matters, really. And it's just, and so it's funny now because it's like I'd rather be a blank slate,
Yeah.
in example to your blue,
Yeah.
and not be judged based on what I'm wearing, because you just don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm. Spot on.
Um, last Yesterday, I was at a 10-year-old birthday party, and so we're at this giant. Do you guys have Slick City? Have you ever heard of that?
Now, what's that?
Okay, so Slick City is this new franchise that's coming out, and they have these giant slides.
Hmm.
All right. Like giant slides. So like, ceiling level slides, and you slide down real fast, and you can pop on into this huge like little mat,
Right.
and just poof. And the kids love it, right? And it's for all ages. You can go on there, and it's super fast. And you have this like thing you hold on like a sled almost.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't know about sleds and snow, but up here we have snow, and we have little hills, and everyone, once it snows real bad, everyone runs to these hills, and they
Mhm.
just have a little sled or whatever they can find, little saucer, and they just go down the snow real fast. And so that's a thing you do up north in the Midwest. So I'm introducing you to snow toys and snow things that we do.
Why not? Why not? Just hop on the trash can top and go down a hill. Have fun.
my my point of the my point of the story was that there was this guy there, and he was wearing like this all this Green Bay Packers stuff,
Mhm.
and it was the day after the Bears just came back and won. And it was interesting to me, like an interesting study of this person, because I said to myself, why is he wearing all this? They just lost. I mean, it was almost like he was looking to get into a fight, right? He was almost, he was defining himself, right? I'm daring someone to say something about last night. Like, it was almost like a dare. And so, to that point, I guess I was thinking in my head, just like, clothes and our styles define who we are. And so, sometimes when we talk about affordability, getting back there, it's like, that's another thing. Clothing. What do you like to wear? Church is another example, right? Paying your tithes, but not only paying your tithes, always having the fresh new suit. Got the man. Some people look phenomenal when they go to church. They got their church gear on. I'm like, dang.
Mhm.
And I just, man, I'm not saying I look bad, but I just I'm just not putting all that money into that.
No, I agree with you. I definitely believe in trying to present yourself well. I think that's important. But there is a level of putting on this, and I think everybody's different. I think some people really get off on dressing nice, and that makes them happy and makes them a better person. And I don't have anything against it. Now, I do have something against it if it doesn't allow you to achieve your financial goals. That's where I
Mm,
have
there you
have
go.
have a, have a coin where we can have a deeper discussion. But if you can afford it, have at it. But as you are alluding to, a lot of folks can't.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes into the ideas and the concepts that we've been sharing on the shows, is that, hey, there's got to be a moment in time that we think more offensively,
Mhm.
if that's going to be a thing,
Yeah.
right? Hey, Dante's going to go to Bears games. That's a thing. Then we have to make sure that we have money to afford that. If shoes are going to be, I sat with a guy on Saturday, and he almost gave me a dissertation on designer shoes. And I was like, well, how much were these? And it was like $650 pairs of shoes. And I'm like, whoa, I've never in my life
Mhm.
paid $650 for a pair of shoes. So in my head, I'm like, you have to make that type of money to afford that. So that's where the offensive minded strategies would have to come into play.
Yeah.
From how much money are you making? Is there another way where we can grow another pot for you to build, so you can take care of those fetishes, those things that you care about, that, we're all different. Some people like the aquariums. They want to have their own little fish aquarium at their house. They just don't want to go to the museum. That's not good enough.
And to bring it back to the home, if you purchase a home, you are signing up for your lifestyle to keep in pace with inflation, even more so than in the past, because things like home repairs and lawn landscaping and property taxes are always going to go up. So if you want to increase your lifestyle, you have to increase your lifestyle in a rate of inflation of home costs. And on top of that, to reach your goals. So be careful what you're signing up for. Similar to if you buy a $600 pair of shoes, you're signing up to maintain those shoes for a couple of years, hopefully. And,
They
and, and,
better.
and stuff like that. Yeah, they better last that long, right? And so that you're right. Be careful what you sign yourself up for as far as the rat race, because all you're going to end up doing is chasing your tail, trying to find more and more money. I got to make this money. I'm short right now. That gets old and it wears down you. And I also think it limits your future economic opportunities because you're thinking of short term cash now versus long term appreciation of your value to society.
That's awesome. After we take care of housekeeping notes, I want to definitely talk about cash flow next up. So, as far as housekeeping notes, Randall, where can someone get a hold of you in 2026?
Yeah. So my name's Randall Avery, certified financial planner and holder of the Charter Financial Analyst designation. I work out of the Atlanta metro area, but I do serve clients across the country. If you are in need of preparing for retirement, or if you're starting a business or have a practice and you just want a experienced financial person who specializes in helping practice owners grow their business, please reach out to me. You can go on my website at www.deasilwm.com. That's www.deasilwm.com. Or you can look at all my social media where I have more conversations like this to really help people win with money. And that's all I'm about.
Awesome. And once again, this episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, after the show is over, if you're on Facebook or if you're on LinkedIn, we definitely want you to come check out the Epic Spotlight YouTube channel. And we want you to, after the show, make sure you're checking out the most recent Epic Spotlight podcast with Casey Miller. Casey is a mortgage industry veteran as she reveals the surprising impact of the new Vantage Score 4 and how trigger lead legislation can protect your data and why most credit repair strategies could be costing you your dream home. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, realtor, or seasoned investor, learn how to build relationships that benefit your finances and uncover credit myths that are ruining you. Join me and listen to Casey. Had a great time talking to Casey. I work with her. She works for Credit Advantage, one of my creditors, and she's inside of information. Great conversation, and really just hopefully, fingers crossed, some of the stuff that she brought up with Vantage Score starts coming in. You know, one of the issues that we're facing, Randall, in the mortgage space is that data has become so expensive. And so it's one of those old man on the porch moments where I say, when I got going in the business, credit reports were $20, but now credit reports are $130.
Wow.
Same data,
Yeah.
but I mean, you know, you talk about a 10x to the nth degree is just insane. And it's like, well, how did we get there? You know, and are there going to be ways or any opportunities to try to lower that score or that price, or to have something come in to be its competitor, to knock it off by its knees? And so Vantage Score is one of those opportunities that might, you know, trickle in as an opportunity to just offer a different outlooks. And so that's what we're really banking on, and that's what we're leaning on. If we're able to do that, that could be a huge thing. Another thing too, just for everyone to know, when you know, if you're looking, if you know anyone, if you know any friends, family, or neighbors that are looking for some preferred listings, you know, definitely check out my listings that are preferred. I know the listing agent. Definitely with a Epic Mortgage pre-approval, we could hopefully get you pre-approved for that mortgage and get you the house. Check out www.danteroyster.com. If you go on the website, you'll see some of these listings. We have listings in Texas, Maryland. We got rid of all the ones in Florida. So definitely, I think we got a couple in Illinois. So make sure you check this out right after the show as well. All right, we got some Q&A, so that's always appreciative. If you have any questions, any comments, make sure you put it down there so we can see it, and we'll try to get to all your questions. So appreciate that. How can buyers realistically decide what they can afford beyond pre-approval? I want you to answer that, Randall.
Yeah. So I think a lot of stuff goes down to ratios. Everybody's situation is different, but I think a way we can always get things down, go old school fractions. So usually they say in between 25 and 30% of your gross income. If you want to be real conservative, you want to unshadow a doubt that can I afford it, definitely go closer to 25%, even 25% of your take home income. That means after all taxes and all that stuff is taken out, what hits your checking account every single month, 25% of that, that is what you can afford on a monthly mortgage payment, which includes your payment on principal and interest, your insurance, and also your homeowners association. That's when you can afford it. Now, in certain areas, probably Chicago, probably New York, where a higher percentage of your income is needed to afford housing, you can usually go up to maybe 35 to 40%. But guaranteed, if you go up to 40% of your take home income, you will begin to see a little bit of things will begin to get tight. You will have to compromise on things like travel, going out with friends, investing in yourself. So just understand your trade off. There's nothing right or wrong, but please accept the trade off and know about it. There's nothing worse than somebody gets in the house and they're like, woe is me because this payment is so much or these repairs are coming across. Those are what I would say about the difference between what you can approve and also what you can actually afford.
FHA allows us to go up to 56% of the gross income. So, and I feel like, when I stop and say, why would they allow us to go so high? But I think they were trying to help families out that maybe someone had a blemish on their credit. And so maybe one person's qualifying. And so they allow them to go up to the 56, even though they have more income in the household. Even though from an underwriting standpoint, we don't really ever ask that person that's, hey, we know that you're not qualified, but we still want to see your income anyway. And that's probably a disservice if you really think about it. But it is interesting on just the products that are available and what they allow us to do. And then here you are saying 25, 30%, and that's like it's almost laughable if so what we see on a regular basis of where people end up going, because the debt to income ratios, generally speaking, are well over 45%, generally speaking. Quite a few, to say the least.
And also, I think those old ratios are based on the premise that incomes go up at a certain rate, and we know a lot of incomes are stagnant for a lot of different professions and industries. So you're not going to go to your boss at the end of the year and get a 14% raise. That doesn't happen. You're not going to automatically get promoted because companies aren't growing as fast as they used to. So these are things between what has historically been done and what we should be doing today.
Exactly. And one of the issues I would say with the whole income situation is that, the majority of incomes are probably through small businesses. Now the theory of small businesses is interesting to me because of what is considered a small business. I think it's under $3 million is considered a small business to some degree, and which is like that's preposterous. I don't think that's a good representation. I mean, I think it's just too wide of a net that they're casting, and so because I feel like there's tiers, there's levels to the game, and the pain points at someone that's making from a business perspective, $500,000 to someone that's dealing with 3 million, it's two different animals. And so as a business, you're always trying to get up to the next scale, and try to push your business out. You're trying to be, if you're at 500,000, you're trying to get to 1 million. If you're at 1 million, you're trying to get to two to three, all the way up to 10 million. But I feel like sometimes the stat lines that they give us is not practical. And so it's hard for us we're grouping too many people in, and people have different issues. Let's see here. We got, what's the biggest mistake first time buyers make after getting approved? I always want to be careful with the approve versus pre-approval, because a pre-approval is when you come to me today, you fill out an application, and I pull the credit, I review your income, and then I get you pre-approved for a mortgage. An actual approval is when you're probably under contract, and from under contract, we have submitted the file to the actual underwriter. At that point in time, the underwriter has reviewed the file and gives us what is called a conditional approval. That conditional approval basically means, yes, I want to do business with you, but I need some additional documentation from you. They wouldn't do their job if they didn't ask you for something else. There's always something they're going to ask for: updated bank statements, verification of employment, a re-verification of deposit assets as such, maybe verification of rent, what have you. So there is additional documentation that is needed once you hit the conditional approval. So what is the biggest mistake first-time buyers make after getting approved? And I'll just say it from a pre-approval, I guess. It just depends on who you're working with, because if you're just going to the max, hey, what's my max, what I qualify for, without knowing what the payment, I think that's important. I think everything comes back to what is a payment per month that you feel comfortable in making, and that would be a review with your financial advisor. That'd be a review potentially of your pay stubs. How much. Because it is weird in the mortgage business. We do generally, from a W-2 employee, we're going off of gross income. So we're not taking into account, the taxes that are being taken out. We're not taking into account the child support. Well, we do factor in child support, but we're not factoring in, what deductions, from a insurance deductions, 401k deductions. We're just looking strictly at the gross. So I think it's very important to be mindful of what is the payment that I'm going to get. I have seen a couple, not necessarily horror stories, but almost a waste of time, right? You got pre-approved, you got the contract for 350, and to your point, hey, they see the loan estimate and said, "Oh man, 3,200. I didn't know it was going to be that much." And then, hopefully they back out right then and there. Hopefully, others will say, "I'm just going to make it work. I'm just going to figure out a way." And hope is not a plan. And I think that's pretty much what we have said on the show. Hope is not a strategy. Hoping
And
that you should be okay.
also add, people take that number as the gospel. And like you said, it's give go, garbage in, garbage out. All it is a calculation of what you've been approved on. They don't double check, well, will my property taxes change? We discussed those things. They don't check whether, is HOA, is this just an introductory price? All these little factors, homeowners insurance. Does this even include homeowners insurance? These are things that we have to investigate, and we should be having those type of discussions. There's a difference between facilitating the transaction and actually providing advice. I think that's the biggest thing I want to give here.
I agree. Next one is Gerard. How much income should stay flexible after paying a mortgage? And that's perfect. That goes right into cash flow. So this is a perfect question. But what would you say? I mean, from a financial advisor level, how much income should stay flexible after paying a mortgage?
And I think this still goes back to ratios. And just because I don't know your specific situation, they say 50% should be on like the fixed hardcore thing. So fixed hardcore things include your mortgage, your car, groceries, things, the utility bills, things that you just need to have in place to run your life. Okay. And there's very limited optionality. There are some options and decisions you can make to reduce those, but those are usually fixed. The other 50% are things like wants, entertainment, dining out, socialization. So that should be around 30%. And they say 20% towards savings. But in reality, which I live in, if you're able to save between 10 and 15% on a regular basis, year in, year out, I think that's a good thing to do. So those are kind of the ratios I think you should focus in. Just put your own numbers in that ratio and you'll see where you fall out. Just know if you don't line up with those ratios, there's going to be compromise. There's nothing wrong with the compromise. Just don't look back at it 2 years down the road and be like, I should have did this. No, plan for those things. I think you'll be well off.
Let's put some real numbers to it. So if we have a person listening to us today that's making $150,000, every year you would like to see them, let's say they're in their 30s, you would like to see them saving $15,000 to $23,000 a year.
That's
That's a good number for you.
Yeah, that's correct. So what does that include? That includes, contributions to your retirement accounts, your employer match that contributes to that, HSAs. I sometimes count in that if you're going above your healthcare cost, and then just regular savings inside your, checking savings and your brokerage account. So that includes, you'll want to be about $15,000, if $150,000. That should be a good starting point. But as you get closer to the 50s and 60s, you really want to turbocharge those savings, because hopefully hopefully it's not always the case. Your home has been fixed cost for a long time. You probably have managed your car situation pretty well. So you have a little bit more leeway. And those are your higher earning years. So just chuck a little bit more than that 10% once you get into the older age range.
It's interesting, and I'll lean on Bill Perkins, right? Bill Perkins was a great with the Die Nothing book, and the concept of the decades. Really looking at the decades as something that's pivotal. It's a different answer for each decade, and I like how you reference like, hey, if you're in your 30s, this is good, but if you're in your 50s, 60s, I want to chuck a little bit more. But there's this kind of arc that we deal with when it comes to responsibility, and it tends to be, at your peak, when the kids are little, but as they get older, that responsibility starts to dwindle down and you become an empty nester. And I think to your point, that's where maybe that cash flow, hey, I'm not paying for school anymore. I'm not, so there is a level, and even including the house, there is a level of momentum that you can really build by starting earlier, getting more people, because one of the sad things that we discussed on the show last year was just the fact that the average first time homebuyer was 40 years old. And so that lag time, that arc is always going to be there for your life, depending on your dynamics, but it's going to be there whether you're dealing with aging parents or you're dealing with kids and aging parents. And so, I would say even right now in my mid 40s, I'm at a max capacity of just responsibilities,
Yeah.
from dealing with little ones and dealing with the aging parents. And so, you hope to say, hey, in 10 years from now, that starts to dwindle down, right? They're in college, the parents are situated, and and so now I have a little bit more flexibility to maneuver, and if I need to play catch up, I can. So it is important, I think, to always, and I want to be careful, and I appreciate that you did that, is to really talk about the decades, because it's different from someone that's doing that successful at age 20 or 22 versus someone that's 35 or 45.
And this is a societal commentary. We do our youth a disservice for not encouraging them to grow up a little faster. I think over the most recent years, we've said the term "let kids be kids," let them enjoy their college experience, not knowing, as you described, well, we have this natural arc in things. So what I see as a financial planner is, well, because they push things so back, they have to do everything at once. What is everything at once? Buy a house, have kids, get married, and they all are doing this within 3 years, and it's nuts, and it's all because we have allowed people to be young and immature, and from a moral value and a societal value, I don't, I think that's a wrong direction for of society.
The house, or let me just say this, real estate is the backbone of the US economy. Everything, really stems from real estate. And so when real estate is too expensive, it enables the mom that can't let go because Johnny's still living in the basement,
Yeah,
or Johnny's upstairs, in a ADU. These situations that occur when things become unaffordable for some and they have to stay at home, they don't get to be the big boy that they need to be or the young lady that they need to be. So, that's where, taking your, just commentary on society and bringing it back to real estate hits hand in hand. You know, we have to make real estate affordable, but um, I get annoyed when I see, oh, we're doing some housing affordability, but it's always about renting. It's never about owning. And so we're missing out on the wealth part. We build wealth by owning. We don't build wealth by renting. And so that's the disservice. Oh, hey, don't worry, we're going to make some houses over here are going to be real affordable for you, but it's rentals. I want to own it. And so that's the difference. We have to make owning a home affordable again for the majority. And I don't know if that is, and the Federal Reserve, there's only so much they can do. Is that lowering rates back to 2%? I don't know how we get there, but we're going to have to figure out a way to make it affordable again, where people can afford to buy homes and build wealth for their future and get out of the house so they can grow up.
But I think there's a step before that though. I think that the unaffordability of home is a symptom of a larger problem, which is really a lack of innovation on society in general, as far as people wanting to get out and provide value to society. Because if they were out there killing it, we wouldn't be talking so much about affordability. So I
Mm.
think there is a lack of drive to get out there and get it, that has caused this glut. These people staying at home, these people coupling up, even not worse, but situations where young couples who are just meeting each other, moving in with each other for economic means. These are signs that we let people stay too young too long, and they're not out there getting it.
And what we talk about, you had the three choices. It was marriage, the home, or having a baby. And how in the 1950s it was pretty simplistic. It was get married, get the house, have the baby, and now it's totally inverted. Got to have that baby. I got to test drive first.
Mhm.
Then I'm going to get a house. Then I don't know. Do I want to marry her? I got to think about it. I mean, it's just so we have our whole society from that standpoint has just it's just radical. It's just totally a 180.
Yeah.
How do you factor lifestyle goals into home affordability? Well, I feel like we've done that, right? Have we done that today?
Yeah, I'll touch on it quickly. Just understand that people say renting is throwing away money, but renting is nice when it's just that one fixed payment, and you call up your landlord for all those other things. So if you need stability for 1 or 2 years, think about the value of that aspect and proximity and your time. I think I just want to add that into that comment. We can move forward.
Yeah, no. I love that you brought up some of the insurance and the association dues and the real estate taxes, because sometimes those are other things that we forget. That like, I'll get the phone call, right? It happens every year. Dante, my payment just went up. I thought this was a fixed rate. You told me it was a fixed rate.
Yep.
It is a fixed rate. Your real estate taxes went up. I don't control the real estate taxes. I don't control your homeowner. Did you have a claim? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you had the storm too, right? Yes. And what'd you do? Well, my windows. So I called the insurance. Well, hey, guess what? That means your insurance premium went up. So those things can factor in. So we have to be accountable for that. Great show already. This topic hits home for so many buyers. Thanks. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you listening today. And then, how important is having savings after closing on a home? I got a good story for this, but go ahead. I'll let you go first if you want to.
So this is what happened. This is just real life. People save up for a home. They buy a home, and they dump a significant portion of their cash into their home. They get in the home, and you've seen this a lot. A water pipe bust. Something in that house is going to happen. Not alone the moving costs, the furnishing costs, the decorating costs. Use When you think about buying a home, think about your down payment plus your typical emergency fund savings. So having savings in place for something that will happen. All homeowners know something will happen. You're just sitting around waiting for it to happen. You have to have enough funds and cash to take care of those things, because you will begin to compromise, whether it's payday lenders, whether it's borrowing from friends and family. Try not to put yourself in that situation. So having savings after closing should be a priority. But remember, nobody's going to tell you that besides a close friend who cares about you or a financial planner. A lot of people are there just to facilitate the transaction.
No doubt. My story that I would give the audience is that in 2008, obviously during the crash, there was really a bad, just a bad representation of the real estate market, right? And mortgage brokers were the bad guys. The fingers got pointed to us that we were greedy, pushing values that weren't not there, and we were the bad people. Now, Randall, you were probably still in school at this time, right?
Well, yeah. Actually, I was in that market. I worked for American General Financial Services back in the day, and there
American
were
General.
we weren't mortgage brokers, but we were in the mortgage business. So I know what was happening then. I was an intern then, so I know intimately some of those practices.
So we were really labeled as the bad guys, and so one of the things I wanted to do to differentiate myself back then is because I believed in what I was doing, and I knew I was doing the good thing for people. Was I wanted to get my investment license, and I thought, being a hybrid would be the best way to show people that, hey, I wasn't one of those guys. I wasn't a predator. I was good. I was a good guy. I'm smart, and I'm able to help you. And I wanted to take a whole financial look at things. So I went ahead and got my 6 and 63 and became a registered representative, as well as doing mortgages. And I thought the hybrid was the be all end all. That was the play for me to make. And getting back to this question, what I found interesting was, the client was still the same client. The guy that needed the retirement plan, wanted to set up his 401k, wanted to set up his life insurance, all these good stuff, but he just also wants to buy a house. It was the same client, but it was the wrong time.
Mhm.
Because, when you're buying a house, down payment plus closing costs, especially a first time home buyer, man, it took you a minute to get to 10,000, $20,000. And so once you've, basically gave all that money up to go buy that house, you didn't have any more money or want to think about spending any more money on some type of retirement financial plan where it's like, wait, I just spent all this money. Now you want me to spend, $200, $300 a month? Hey, can we pause on that? I'll get back to you. Great ideas, but I'll get back to you. So it was an interesting kind of experimental phase that I went through where it was the right client, but I needed to talk to that client 10 years from then and not necessarily right then and there. So savings is so important because of all the things that you said. It's just, hey, I buy it and then a busted pipe, or I bought it and the home inspector didn't notice one item and now I got to deal with it. Those things happen. And moving. When you move and you get a new place, you kind of want to have some new furniture. You might want that love sack couch. You might want to have some things that you're like, hey, I like this. So, in doing that and having that situation come up, you want to have some money saved up. I don't know what denomination, if you want to give, but it would be nice to have at least 6 months of your mortgage payment.
Yeah, 6 to 3 months worth of living expenses saved up. Of course, more if your employment situation is higher risk than others.
I got some stats for you right before we wrap up. You want to hear some stats?
Go ahead.
Nearly 75% of U.S. households cannot afford a median price new home under traditional underwriting standards. That's a big number.
I think that goes back to, like I said, letting folks be young too long, not letting them grow up and establish themselves. That's the root cause of that.
The scary part about that is that's the stagnation we see in the real estate market right now. If three-fourths of homeowners can't even qualify in today's realms because of higher interest rates and higher, real estate taxes and as such higher purchase prices than what they bought in, the fear is that will they ever move? So now we have all these people just staying in these houses, where we can help them renovate it and make it livable and change how it looks, to keep them fresh. But we're stuck. We don't have enough homes to sell because people are trying to hold on to that 2-3% interest rate. They don't want to touch it, and that's a major concern. Median monthly housing payments for buyers hit record highs around $2,920 per month. So I mean that is the norm, $2,920 per month.
And a lot of people can't. I mean, people were hard to stomach $2,000 worth of rent. Now you're telling them 2,900, and their utility bills are going up, and all those other things are going up. It's tight, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of quiet people not being comfortable in society. So definitely be kind to your fellow man out there because it's tight.
That's that Georgian Southern hospitality. I like it. I hear you. To afford the median price home in 2025 at typical rates, a household needs nearly $117,000 of annual income, far above the U.S. median. So, I think the U.S. median probably is hovering around 65, 66,000.
And that's for a household. not one individual, a household.
Household. And then now you're talking about 117,000 to be able to qualify. So that is like the bar that it has really, been. Now we're hopeful that with rates dipping like they have in recent weeks, as well as, this year, hopefully that will encourage people. But I mean, it's still, you have to make money or you can't play this game.
Yeah, I tell folks like, hey, don't save. Yes, save up to for a down payment, all those other things, but your focus probably should be on making more money, versus purely on saving, because
Say
you
that
have to
again,
earn.
Randall.
So make more so you can afford more. That should be your time and effort spent, in my opinion.
No, eh, I love that you said that. I do, and that's why these are the strategies and conversations of like and sometimes people are facing like, hey, the first house I buy is not a primary home. The first house I buy is going to be some type of rental house hack situation where I can get in the game and be able to start making money because I need to find ways to make more money. And folks, if you're hearing it from a financial advisor saying you got to make more money, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm bringing true professionals on the show that are saying the things, and I didn't pay him to say that. He just said that. So we need to get more people spending this money, man, and,
Let,
and
let
making
me
money.
let me add a caveat to that. So when I say make more money, it's not hustle up more money. I want to go a little bit deeper and say, um, try to find ways to add value to society, because that's the way you're going to be adequately compensated. We all receive the text, you can make so and so for half a day of work, some job that may not be as legit as we want. But if you just focus on adding value to society, I think you will be fairly compensated.
Awesome, man. Well, we did it, man. We did it again.
I'm back.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll say Happy New Year. I'll
Happy New Year
break
to you. There
I'll
you go.
break my code. I'll do that. And we learned about Randall's closet today. Oh,
There you go.
man, so everyone knows now. But what about that shirt underneath though? That ain't blue, man.
It's an accent color, so it's blue. So you got to have a whole palette of colors. So it's blue, with brown. Those are my two colors, which is multiple
Earth
shades of blue,
tones.
multiple shades of brown, and then, of course, I have black and white as accents.
I got you. You remind me of Steve Harvey. He was breaking down how to
Oh
keep it
yeah,
all basic, so that's funny. Well, good stuff, man. I look forward to a great year with you this year. I hope we can steal you away, at least once a month. Come on the show and rock the house. I love the topic today. And there was other topics that I was actually interested in. I just didn't want to flood this one. But this is kind of the deep dive that you wanted to get into a little bit more this year too, as well, right?
yeah. I love just,
Awesome.
taking away the fluff and just go deeper, and hopefully it's value add. I know it's not as sexy, but we do our best.
We do our best, man. I always wear orange, but I do rock different colors, though. I do rock different colors. I don't know. You make me think. Am I wasting my mind capacity by choosing different colors? That's a fascinating concept.
Imagine shopping only looking at one color, how fast you would be done with shopping, and how you could prioritize what pieces actually matter.
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, well, it would be more efficient, right? Because if I'm only one color, then the accent colors, it's just real easy. Now I got all this extras stuff because I got to have the orange shoes with the orange Nikes. I got to find those. So I understand. I understand where you're going with that. I love it. Always wonder what the wife says about that, but I I understand. I do understand.
Now, as you all know, the wife gets to do whatever she wants to do.
Man, indeed. Well, hey, Randall, wish you the best this year. Looking forward to working with you and looking forward to these conversations. Really appreciate you. And I want you to have an epic day as always.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.